All right, so welcome to Assets and Algorithms, the show where we explore the intersection of real estate and technology. Have my guest here today is Jim Black with the Jim Black Group, brokered by Real. Thanks for joining me today, Jim.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invite.
Of course, man. I think you're going to be able to offer a really unique perspective being a residential broker. I'd love to hear your perspective on some of the things we're seeing. So I want to start by, first of all, congratulating you on building one of the top performing teams in your county and beyond. And I want to ask you to share a little bit about your role as that team leader and how it fits into the bigger vision for the Gem Black Group and the community you serve.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we started the Jim Black Group back in 2013, so we've been going for a while. We're a dozen years now, and that role went from being the guy that's at every kitchen table, looking at every house. And as we've grown, I mean, I was out looking at a bunch of houses with my partner Kim today. So I'm still out in the field, but a lot more of my time is spent today really being a mentor and a leader to the people in my organization because they're an extension of me. They need to be doing things right. They need to be, succeeding in the way I was succeeding. And if I don't show them exactly what I did, they're not going to know what to do.
Absolutely. I think that's really important in the industry is having that mentorship, having that guidance to pass along that knowledge. Right? You said that the group has been around for almost a decade now, a little bit more than a decade now. So, that's great to hear that you're taking that experience and giving it to the next group of guys and girls coming up.
Exciting to watch people grow and succeed. I mean, I just before our this podcast here, I was actually grabbing coffee with somebody who used to work with us, just in his new position in a new industry. He's struggling with some stuff, so he was asking me for some advice on how to motivate people, how to get people to maybe have a positive energy and
Mm.
just some of that stuff, which I think that's in real estate, we get to help people, but we get to help them not just buy and sell houses, but sometimes you get to help them through life.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Real estate is tough and sometimes you got to be able to have that person that you can talk to and that could push you through some of those situations that life may throw at you. I'd like to ask you, you're talking about onboarding people and your team growing and mentorship. How do you maintain consistency for your clients and that experience that they have when you're growing?
So I think some of the biggest things we've done that's really simple is we have people shadow our more seasoned people and watch exactly what they do. Like go
Mm,
meet with somebody at their house, go meet with somebody in our office and actually see exactly how people are doing things. Because we can train people, we can have
mm,
them watch videos, but if they don't see exactly what we do, so I think that's one of the biggest things. The other thing is you have to have some sort of operations manual. Like we don't have it perfect, but we got, when we do this process, like this is what you do for an open house. This is what you do when you put a house on the market. This is, these are what we do when it comes to photos and staging and having a process in place that's specific with, some judgment in it, but for the most part, they can come in and see how it's done, look at the procedure and go do it. And I think you have to do that in any business. You have to have consistency. I mean, you go to McDonald's, they pretty much are the same at every place. And not that I want to compare our business to that, but
mhm.
it's got to have some of that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Especially when, you're handling a ton of volume, right? And as a top performer, you handle a ton of volume. So you have to have those systems in place. I want to ask from your perspective, what does a typical day look like for you in terms of leadership and some of the technology tools you're using to manage that team?
I mean, on a daily basis, a lot of mine is we're getting people motivated in the morning and we talk about what people are grateful for. That's how we start a day, with
Mm,
gratitude. It's a very simple thing, but I think and we've been doing that for years. We role play the conversations people are going to be having with people throughout the day. So they actually know how to have the tough conversations and we're tough on each other. So we
mm,
know how to handle that conversation throughout the day. And then it's some of it's meeting one-on-one with these agents, whether it's me or my director of operations, going and help, like looking at their goals, where they're trying to go, and see how we get them there. And we had talked about it a little bit earlier too. Is like some of the things are getting simpler because we talked about technology. Is like I had somebody who was built some really good systems for us around training and everything like that, and I was really worried when they're leaving. And because one of my biggest struggles is coming up with things like a training plan. And literally, I went
Mm,
into ChatGPT and was like, give me a training plan based on, for a real estate team based on this, and this, and it just like spit out something that was not half bad. And it
mm,
gave, for me, it took all that time of thinking about it away. And I was able to look at it and say, okay, like, what can I take from this? Because obviously, I'm not going to just take the training plan that they gave me, but it
mm.
made it a lot easier to be able to do that. And even like those role play conversations, I can go do the same thing and just say, hey, like, here's some ideas, like, spit something out to me. So I think we're starting to see some of, like, even the last person I hired, job description, like we entered in there, and that thing spit out almost exactly what we needed. And it would have taken me a whole day to do that, and it took 30 seconds.
I love that you're getting that value out of it. I think, like you mentioned, it saves a ton of time. It helps you be more efficient and productive. You having something structured and pretty decent to start with, right? Giving you kind of a template that's tailored for you to just jump in there and add, all the meat and potatoes that you need to take it to that next level and make it usable is really great. It's kind of like gives you a springboard to jump off of and make a big splash. So I think that's one of the major shifts that we're seeing, across the market as a whole, but definitely in real estate and residential real estate. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the shifts that you're seeing in the market right now, how you think technology will affect that.
Yeah, I mean, some of the biggest shifts we've seen over the last few years have been, I mean, where we are specifically has been an inventory shift, where the inventory here had still stayed very low, even as it's creeped up in different parts of the country.
Mm,
I mean, I think there's definitely some stuff that happens from a technology standpoint with, some of the tools that are out there where they can predict who's going to sell their home next. Makes it a little bit more efficient for us to know like who we're going to call and talk to. I mean, I also think the other thing that's changing is where we're not needing to do all of the things I talked about. The efficiencies is like we may not need all the same people that we needed before, because there's a lot of like, pressures on what a real estate agent could have paid, because you have all these people you have to hire to do these different tasks. And then it's like, if you don't have to hire all of them, you can probably actually have an okay profit margin. Because if you build that real estate team, I mean, for anybody that's building a real estate team, like, a lot of them aren't profitable. Some of them actually lose money. And it's actually hard to turn a profit. And some of these technology tools may actually help to have that happen, where you don't need as many people to still provide an incredible level of service. And that's what I'm seeing, I think, happening in the near future. But I definitely think that the shifts in the market, we're still seeing like way above list price offers. We're still seeing no home inspection. So it's really still very, very crazy in our market. I know it's not like that everywhere, and it's been like that for years now.
Yeah, yeah. The market is, real estate can get localized, right? A ton. It varies from state to state and city to city for sure. But that's really interesting to get that insight on how things are going for you guys in your market. And what I realized is that your team, and we talked about this a little bit earlier as well. Your team has a pretty impressive online presence, and you do a lot of community outreach. Can you talk to me about maybe CRMs or some of the follow-ups and social media marketing and how that's impacted your ability to grow and scale?
Yeah, I mean, we utilize. I can share with you what we use. I mean, we utilize like CR Interactive is what we use for our CRM. We also utilize Fellow, which, if people aren't familiar with that, it's an incredible system for the value you get. Which is, utilize it to people within your database or outside of it, where you're actually given the opportunity for people to get a value on their home. But they
Hmm.
also can request things like a cash offer on their home through that system. It actually, when you're asking for that, it's very similar to if like you responded to something from an open door, which open
Mm,
door goes and purchases homes directly from the consumer. So we put all that stuff out there. Most of the time, people are not really looking for a cash offer, but sometimes they're in a situation where they really need something quick. They've got a foreclosure coming up in a week or two. That's something I'm actually, as I'm talking, I'm really thinking I'm seeing a lot more of. Is a lot of people have a lot of equity in their homes,
Mhm.
but they have huge credit card debt, maybe student loan debt, and maybe they have bad credit and they have no way to access the equity. I see people in tough scenarios that aren't publicized because you don't see it because they just sold their home and they went ahead and had equity from it. So it just looks like a normal sale. But in
Mm.
reality, they were a few months from foreclosure, close, and they got out of it unscathed. But I
Mhm.
think there's some of that is going to come to hit us as this credit card debt keeps. There's a lot of consumers out there right now, tons of credit card debt, tons of other consumer debt, tons of student loan debt. There's just a lot of that going on, and they have a ton of equity in their home. So I think we're going to start seeing some foreclosures from that, but we're seeing people having to go and, you know, go rent somewhere, sell their house, and go do that to get out of the situations they're in. So I think there's a lot more people struggling right now than we actually see because the data doesn't state it. But I'm seeing it a lot. Like those phone calls of I have a foreclosure in a week or a month is not an
Mm.
uncommon phone call right now, which several years back we didn't have that. And I think just a lot of people with like inflation, all this stuff is it's really coming to a head, and people got really comfortable, honestly, like not having to pay bills for a bit. The government was throwing money at them. They didn't have to pay their student loans, and all of a sudden those bills started coming due. And now I think people are don't know how to live off of the money that they actually make anymore.
Mm.
And now the having costs more, and they don't know how to live off actually the money that they've made. So I think we'll see some stuff. I don't foresee this like crazy crash, but I do see we're going to see more distressed situations where people have to sell just to get out of the scenario they're in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We have had a pretty rocky past 5 years, right? With COVID and then post-COVID effects, and even now with our new administration, there's a ton of uncertainty in the market, and people are really struggling, like you mentioned. And I think like the tool you talked about,
Fellow.
Fellow, yeah, like people aren't necessarily going to market their homes for sale, but they'll be able to, reach out to someone like yourself and say, listen, I'm looking for a cash offer. Can you facilitate this for me? So, it's great that you're at the forefront of that conversation, and being able to help people with the technology you implemented, man. So I super appreciate that insight. Let me ask, it sounds like you have a few things that's working really well for you, and I love to hear it. I love to hear a little bit more about what's working well for you, and talk a little bit about some of the friction or bottlenecks, because we all have our ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like as the markets changed, like we used to have a whole inside sales team, which we found that we needed the agent to speak directly to consumer rather than have a middleman. So we got rid of that. That's something that was not working that used to work. One thing we found is most of the paid lead sources we have out there, they haven't made sense for our business for a very long time. So our business right now is about 85% relationship based, where it's like a past client, somebody from our sphere. Maybe it's a vendor, like somebody we do business with is sending people our way. And most of the business that's not people we already know is somebody who came to our website, somebody who researched us on Google, somebody who drove by our signs. Like it's very organic right now. Like we
Mm.
put ourselves out there. We do some pay-per-click advertising. We do have some partnerships through realtor.com, but people are kind of like seeking us out rather than just seeking any agent. So if I go to some of the other sources, they just want a warm body, and we just chose not to be in any of those. So we've tried different things that work for other teams, like a thing like Zillow. Zillow works really great for some teams. For us, it's never been a profitable venture. Like we probably break even after we pay everything that's involved. So for us, we found that relationship was the way to go. And one thing with all this technology changes, people don't know if you're a real person anymore. So trying to
Mm.
get face to face with people is actually a positive thing. Doing an open house, you can't fake that. Like you're a person. If you so do, Open houses is old school strategy, still works. You still
Mhm.
meet people, you still build trust, You still stay in front of me, use that CRM that we have to go ahead and do that. But you got to get face to face, or like even just having a phone conversation where they know you're a real person. Like we do client events. We do a few of them every year. And we started getting really consistent probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And I feel like that keeps our people in front of us. Like it's basically a thank you. But that's something where I really think like as technology keeps advancing, I think more and more people want to know that you're a real person. You got to find ways to get face to face with them in your community. And like I've always been part of, different volunteer groups, different organizations where I give back, and you don't give back to get business, but when you
Mhm.
give back, a lot of times you get business. It's part of what it is. So yeah, so I found that like, it's like you need the technology, but you also need to get face to face. You need people, because people don't, what do they say? Yeah. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mhm.
And like if you're volunteering and doing stuff to help the community, you build trust in the way you handle that. It carries over the same way you handle that is probably how you handle business. So if they trust you in this, they trust you in this. And that's something I learned years ago from somebody who I watched them get a bunch of business that came directly from this charity work they did. And I thought it was weird. And then I realized, no, it's not weird at all. It's like they know who you are and they trust you. So they're
Mhm.
just gonna naturally go to you when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great point, right? And it touches on that community outreach that you guys do a ton of, right? Once they know you in that community, then they feel comfortable with you, and they feel comfortable referring other people to you because they know that they'll be in good hands. So that's wonderful to hear that you're you know reaping the benefits of that. I don't think that'll change. I don't think technology can change that. Real estate is a relationships and a human business. So that'll continue to be that way. But I think technology can just smooth out some of the inefficiencies that may pop up. So I love that answer. Thank you. So I want to talk really quickly about metrics. What would you say the core metrics that you're dialed into at the moment are, and what's top of mind for growth?
So when you say metrics for my business, like what we measure,
Yep.
okay. I mean, I'll say sometimes it's different. Depends on where we're deficient
Mhm.
in the business. So I mean, the biggest metrics is going to be, it starts with how many people we're talking to on a regular. So we measure. So we have a system we utilize. Sisu is what we use. It's worked really well for us for years. We use that, and agents on a daily input their numbers. They input how many people they spoke to. They input how many people they met with, how many clients they signed, how many properties they put under contract, and how many they closed. And we can look at the percentages there, but it always comes back to the conversations. And if that percentage from conversations to meetings is not good, then we can figure out how do we help their conversations. If the between the meeting with somebody and signing them is not good, then we're going to talk about, okay, what are you saying in that meeting? And then if it's going from the ones they're signing to under contract is tough, well, maybe they're signing stuff they shouldn't be signing. Under contract to close is bad. Well, what are they doing to bulletproof the transaction? Because it sounds like either they're taking offers they shouldn't, or they're working with buyers that maybe aren't really people that should be buying. Maybe they're not really pre-approved through a lender. So those are the things that we look at, though. The people we talk to, appointments set, appointments met, signed, closed. Those are the main metrics that we're measuring within our business.
Awesome. I love that. Really, really dial into what the moves the needle, right? What are the things that impact the bottom line and help people reach their goals? I love that. So looking ahead, 6 to 12 months, what would you say you're most focused on, or you think that technology can change the most in the industry and in your business?
Data is awesome to have. So, I mean, I use another system that is called Corded, which gives me a lot of data on agents in our market. So I can
Mhm.
see like what are they doing? Well, what's their production like? Is it up? Is it down? Like let's get probability as on who you think will move, not move in the business. But it helps me to like just know like when I'm talking to somebody, like where they're at a little
Mhm.
bit. So our biggest thing in our business going forward is I think we built an incredible business that we don't tell people about. So like from a growth standpoint, we've never been great at growing because we never tell people what we're about. So for me, it's the biggest focus is honestly going to be bringing great people into our business that are struggling to gain the traction that they could. So So the goal is to obviously double, triple their business by them being part of what we do, but also to grow our business in that way. So, because I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing in the industry right now is we're going to see like lots of big businesses gobbling up little businesses, like
Mm.
small brokerages getting, a lot of small brokerages folding into a lot of the virtual brokerage, the real broker, virtual brokerage. It honestly, to me, it makes absolutely no sense for me to be a independent broker. Financially, it makes absolutely no sense to me. And from a work standpoint, unless I was maybe if I was building a huge brokerage, I could see it. So I think we're going to see a lot of that because I think there's I see a lot of people struggling. There's like less sales, more agents. The math doesn't math. People are struggling. So that's our focus, is to really bring people that are good people into our world that we can actually help become better.
I love that. I think everybody wins in a situation like that. And, sounds like you have a really good handle on the tools that it takes to help them win and, find out where they're at and bridge that gap between where they are and where they need to be. So that's beautiful. Last question before I let you go. If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one major challenge in your business today, what would that be? And how would it change your team's day-to-day operations?
I hate to say this, but it's a lot of times it's another real estate agent
Mm,
is not trained properly or has too big of an ego to be willing to get trained properly. I would say that's honestly the biggest challenge is a lot of times is if I could wave a magic wand and make sure that people have there's a higher level of was it like just make it more difficult to get into the industry and stay in the industry, it would actually be huge for our team because I think we have a high level of professionalism. And a lot of times, some of the conversations we have wouldn't be happening if these agents were actually doing what I described, where they shadow other agents, they find out what the recipe is, and they just do that recipe. That's why franchises work,
mm,
because there's a recipe that works. You just do that recipe. But when you go and start a business from scratch, knowing nothing about that business, like it might work out, it might not. And that's what I see in real estate most of the time. And that would like, if that wasn't the case, we would have a much shorter work week. We'd have a
mhm.
lot less challenges, a lot less stress because we wouldn't have to like push someone else down the road.
Yeah, I think that's great, right? It is pretty easy to get into real estate and having the people that are really professionals, really here to stay, would really allow uh, a higher quality experience for everyone involved. So I think that's a great answer as well. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me today, Jim. I think your insights have been amazing. You're using a ton of tools, and I think your success will continue. Congratulations. I want to take this time to allow you to let people know where they can find you, where they can reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation or work with you in the future.
Absolutely. Well, you can pop on my website if you want, jimblacksellshomes.com, and I'll leave my email, which is jim@jimblackgroup.com, and my cell phone, which is 774-280-0353.
Perfect. Again, thank you for joining me today, Jim. And this has been another episode of Assets and Algorithms.